Tandy and Tyrone finally use their powers to work together, but it's not without its bumps in the road. So let's take a look at Cloak and Dagger episode 7 and find out what happened. What's going on, y'all? Lisa here, and welcome back to another Cloak and Dagger recap. Now, you know this isn't the only show I recap, so be sure to check out the rest of my videos and even let me know what other shows I should check out. And subscribe if you haven't already, because I make videos every week. So, it's been a slow burn, but we finally get to see Tandy and Tyrone in action in this episode, which is kind of a trippy one that plays out like a version of Groundhog's Day meets 28 Days Later mixed with Deepwater Horizon. But you know what? I really liked it. So last we left off, we met Mina and her dad, Ivan. Ivan worked very closely with Tandy's dad and has been in a catatonic state for about the past 8 years since the rig explosion, and he was the only survivor. In this episode, we find Tandy and Tyrone venturing inside Ivan's mind. Yeah, inside his mind. So let's get this started.
Something new. Something delightfully, incredibly, wonderfully new.
So remember last episode when we saw Mina making these heart-shaped sugar cookies with her special ingredient cardamom, and she brings them when she visits her dad? Well, we thought that was kind of a minor detail, right? But those cookies end up being the key to saving Ivan in this episode. And we get to see the origins of those cookies at the beginning of this episode thanks to a flashback that shows young Mina making cookies in her easy bake oven and sending one with her dad to work. She tells him to figure out the special ingredient. That's kind of their little game here. We also learn that Mina is superstitious, but I have no idea if that's actually something that's significant or not. We then follow Ivan to work and we realize it's the day of the explosion, and we see that the conductive shielding tiles he ordered for some reason never came. Like someone said to not order them and he had no idea. I guess that's gonna be something maybe major coming soon. And then we see the rig explode, and that song that the catatonic Ivan is humming ends up being the same song that was playing when the rig exploded. We are then right back in the church where we left off at the end of the last episode, with Tyrone telling Tandy what happened with Dwayne and how he feels like he's failed because Dwayne was basically the only other person he feels could have helped him take down Connors without getting too dirty, because Dwayne was also a witness. Tandy gives him some advice though, courtesy of Nathan Bowen, saying that our failures are the steps we climb, and both kind of aren't sure what exactly that means, but they will by the end of the episode.
Look, I know this is gonna sound... I'm not even sure how to bring it up.
Tandy then uses this moment to awkwardly ask Tyrone for help, so they go see Ivan, and Tandy convinces Tyrone to help her. So they each grab one of Ivan's hands, and all of a sudden, they're standing in front of that door that was shrouded by darkness we saw Tandy see last episode. Tyrone proves to be the key to getting into the door, and when he touches that darkness, they're teleported inside the rig. They see a worker walking towards them with a pretty killer instinct, and they think this is like their past visions where no one else can see them. But think again. These zombie-esque workers can see them and start attacking them, causing both to have to use their powers to fend them off. Well, I guess if Tyrone really wanted to work on, his powers and harnessing them and controlling them a little better, what better way to make that happen than throwing him in with the wolves here, or the zombies or terrors, whatever they are. They end up running for cover in an office, and it turns out to be Ivan's office, except this Ivan guy seems a little office rocker. He doesn't even remember his name and thinks Tandy and Tyrone are special for having names. But he basically says that they can't stop this rig from exploding. The only way he knows how to stop it is to get to the core room, hit the kill switch, and close the shutoff valves. But he's tried to do this over and over again, and he's never made it, so he's basically just given up, and he's fine with this Groundhog's Day life over and over. Now, as Tandy and Tyrone try to figure out what the heck is really going on, they go through a few of these explosion repeat days, and pretty much learn that during the energy explosion, whatever it's called, the gas that is released turns everyone else but Ivan into these kind of bloodthirsty monsters that Ivan calls terrors. And basically his theory is that the energy, when improperly released, infects the minds with pure fear that spreads from person to person. Interesting, huh? Tandy tries to explain what's actually happening to Ivan, but yeah, he's not buying it. It all just seems fake to him, and he doesn't remember even having a daughter. When Tandy brings up her dad, Nathan Bowen, that name rings a bell because It's literally the guy ringing a bell, aka calling Ivan on the phone every time the day repeats. And once Tandy learns that it's her dad that calls on the phone, you can feel that Tyrone is going to be screwed in this entire situation. The next time the phone rings, you betcha Tandy answers that phone and starts talking to her dad and pretty much leaves Tyrone by himself to try to figure out how to fix everything. Tyrone heads down to the core room and does exactly what Ivan said, but sadly it doesn't work, the rig explodes and the day starts over again. Well, now Tandy is basically consumed with talking to her dad every time the phone rings and doesn't want to help figure out how to get them the heck out of there. And Tyrone is so fed up, he's like, I'm gonna leave you here, but he doesn't quite know how to leave and he thinks he needs Tandy to do it. So Tandy says, okay, maybe you're right. It's like she's come around, but she's actually just played Tyrone again, and Tyrone ends up leaving and waking up back in the hospital, but sees that Tandy's still holding on to Ivan. Now, because Tyrone's a good guy and not Kafka selfish like Tandy, although I kind of understand why Tandy would do this when she's missing her dad so much, but like I said, Tyrone is not selfish and decides to go back for Tandy. So he grabs Ivan's hand and is launched right back into Ivan's mind. And we learn that it's been at least 200 repeats since he was last there, and yeah, time in this guy's mind is pretty crazy, but Tandy is pretty content with just sitting there talking to her dad day after day after day after day because, well, she's been missing her dad so much.
Where'd you learn that?
Because Tandy's so content, Tandy and Tyrone start fighting, even throwing light daggers and teleporting all over the place because Tandy doesn't want to give up what she's found. Even though Tyrone is trying to convince her with all his might, everything that he knows, that this whole situation is not real. Just like they tried to tell Ivan this whole thing that they're stuck in is not real. She's just not buying it anymore. She's over it. She's happy living in this false reality if it means she gets to talk to her dad. Well, Tyrone has to go the harsh route and asks Tandy if she's even told her dad who she truly is anymore, including that she was a drug addict, a thief, and all that kind of stuff. And it's kind of like, ouch. Tyrone finally asks Tandy, though, to do him one thing, and then he'll leave her alone if it turns out to be true. He tells her to ask her dad one question that only he would know, because they're actually in Ivan's mind, so Ivan wouldn't know the answer to this question, and he's hoping that this proves to Tandy that the dad on the phone is not real. Tandy actually agrees and asks her dad on the phone who's in the back of his car, and he says no one, and you can see Tandy start to just cry, but she gets a grip and we have the explosion again. But we're back in business this time. As the day repeats, Tandy sees Ivan smelling the cookie, which we've actually seen him do in the background multiple times. Tandy uses this cookie to try to get Ivan to remember Mina now. She finally brings up the secret ingredient, cardamom, and this talk seems to actually trigger Ivan remembering everything as he's like, oh, that's the game that I used to play with Mina, and she never actually got to tell me the secret ingredient. Tyrone has also figured out that it is Ivan who needs to get to the core room and do this whole thing himself, otherwise this nightmare is not going to end. So Tandy and Tyrone use their powers to clear the path for Ivan of the terrors to get to the core room, hit the kill switch, and close the shutoff valve. He does this, but the explosion then happens, and for a second you're like, seriously? It's gonna happen again? Like, oh, this is starting to get exhausting, and then you realize there's not that long left in the episode, so this has to be the last time, right? Well, thankfully, all three of them wake up back in the hospital room with Ivan being like, who the hell are you two? Tyrone goes home and Tandy then goes back to the church, and Tyrone grabs a shoebox from the crawl space that has a bunch of memorabilia of Billy, and I think the ballet slipper was in there too. But he also pulls out a tape recorder and then calls Tandy because he just needed someone to talk to that would understand him. Which is interesting because you'd think maybe you would call his girlfriend, right? Because she said she knows who he is, but I don't think he's trusting that, and he goes with Tandy instead. Now, in Ivan's mind, Tyrone, when trying to convince Tandy that her dad's voice wasn't real, he talked about how he doesn't even think that he would remember Billy's voice if he heard it today. But all that talk and the events of the day caused him to remember that tape recorder in the box. He explains all of this to Tandy and then plays the tape for them, and they both have smiles on their face as they listen to Tyrone try to beatbox while Billy raps. It's actually a very sweet moment, and Tandy even asks Tyrone to play the tape again. Oh, and this episode, Tyrone tells Tandy that her dad's advice about the failures being the steps they climb being right. So yeah, usually these kind of advice things come full circle on this show. And well, that's it. Now, something I'm actually still surprised about every time that I watch this show is how many times they say the word shit. on this show. Sorry that I just said it, but I bleeped it out here. But like I said, I started noticing the use of this word more on Freeform when I watched The Fosters. Like the last season or two, the characters started dropping that S-bomb more and more. And I feel like on Cloak and Dagger, I've noticed it being in almost every episode, and this episode being in it multiple times. So like, did the FCC change their regulations or something? Because I feel like this is a word you don't hear on these kinds of channels at all. You usually hear it on HBO, Showtime, the premium type channels, and then like streaming shows where there aren't as many, you know, regulations. So this is kind of weird, but also it makes it feel a little more realistic in a sense, because in every day you can walk around, people use this word, like not overly like just like flat out being like cuss word, cuss word, cuss word, cuss word. It's used, you know, in the right kind of context on this show, which is fine. But it's just interesting to me that all of a sudden Freeform has started doing this. Did anybody else notice that? Back to the show. We finally have Ivan awake. So could he be the key in helping Tandy clear Nathan's name? But we do know how dangerous Roxxon is, and I feel like Ivan probably knows as well. So is he going to risk his life that he just got back to help Tandy clear Nathan's name? I guess we're going to have to wait and see, right? Because it seems like Roxxon or whoever canceled Ivan's order of those conductive shielding tiles may have been a big factor in the explosion in this whole thing. And we know that this stuff that they've been drilling for is dangerous, so is what happened in Ivan's mind foreshadowing what could happen if that stuff actually gets out the way it's not supposed to? Could we have a whole city of New Orleans being terrors with Tandy and Tyrone trying to solve everything? I do like this episode though, because I feel like it's Tandy's true turning point. She's been very selfish and, you know, manipulative up until now, but now I think we're finally going to get to see her start to realize that she has to work together with Tyrone. Not everything is about her. What she does affects, you know, other people. So now I hope we'll finally get to see these two really start bonding and working together, because they actually saw what happened if they put their powers together and worked together to do something. Yeah, they saved Ivan, right? You can also feel that there's definitely chemistry in the romantic sense, these two, but I'm kind of hoping they leave that romance stuff for season 2, because I like just seeing these two get to know each other, you know, on their powers level and a friendship level and a team work kind of a level, and then we can have the romance later, because I feel like they have to do that because that's in the comics, right? All right, but let's watch the promo for the next episode.
Ignore me. I dare you.
The superhero show of the summer has only 3 episodes left.
I have a plan to nail Connors. I can do something that would sound crazy unless you see it with your own eyes. There!
I don't see anyone!
Who are you?
What do you want?
I want my father back.
Alright, from this and the synopsis for the next episode, it seems like the anniversary of the explosion and the loss of Nathan and Billy will bring up a lot of conflict, but also maybe kind of push these two, Tandy and Tyrone, to doing what they've been saying they want to do this whole season, which is clear both of the guys' names. But I have a feeling that's not going to be that easy. But I'm excited to see what plays out these last episodes of this season. I think we're only getting 10 episodes this season, so there's not too many left. But that wraps up this week's Cloak and Dagger recap. What was your favorite part? Mine personally was watching Tandy and Tyrone work together to take down those terrors. I love a good superhero action fight. But do you think those terrors were foreshadowing of anything? Do you think Ivan will help Tandy? How should Tyrone actually go about getting Connors down and bringing him down now that we don't have Dwayne anymore? Sound off in the comments down below with all your thoughts and theories, and if you haven't subscribed yet, it's really easy, it's free. You can just click that little button and then you can check out some of my other videos right over here. My name's Lisa, thanks for hanging out with me. I'll see you again next time.